Welcome back to Rochester Living with Mark Siwiec and Corey James Moran, brought to you by Elysian Homes by Mark Siwiec and Associates. This is episode 216. Mark, how are you?
I'm good, bud. How you doing?
Are we enjoying, I guess it's finally, feels like fall now, right?
It really is.
Summer's gone.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
Fall is here.
I'm 60 years old.
Yeah.
This is, I would say, the nicest fall I've ever experienced in my 60 years.
Do you enjoy 50 and rainy? Is that what I'm
Oh, come on. That's just the past few days. I mean, it has been like balmy 75 degrees. The sun is shining.
Yeah.
It's low in the sky, crisp blue skies, and, ochre and gold and red. Evan, what do you think?
That's the first question for me. I'm going to endorse this fall weather.
There we go. Okay.
Very
there we
good.
Go. There we go.
I'm down.
Evan, hot take.
Hot take is when people say they like fall, what they mean is they like September and the first couple weeks of October.
Yep.
November is the worst month of the year weather-wise, and they don't really mean that, even though that's fall.
It is
But this
not.
has been really good.
November is not the worst. No.
Yeah, I mean,
January is. January. No.
No, that's just science.
We're
Okay.
going to spend the next.
I'm not just here to argue about the
We're
weather.
going to spend the next hour arguing.
Here we go.
with our
That's
guest.
fine. Our guest, Evan Dawson, Connections with Evan Dawson on
guys.
WXXI. Thank you so much for joining us.
Your
Appreciate
studio
it.
has changed, Evan. I mean,
know.
my gosh, it doesn't look
The
the
lights
same.
are so bright. This feels so awkward. I'm going to be awful today. No, I'm really glad. Thanks for inviting me to be here.
Appreciate it very much. So we have a lot to get to with you. Let's jump into some real estate real quick first,
Let's
Mark.
do it. Yeah.
I don't know. There's been a little bit of a flurry here at the end. Is this the last gasp of 2024?
Yes, it
Or
is.
25, rather.
2025.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely the last gasp.
I had 3 offers yesterday.
You had
3.
you wrote 3 offers? Or you,
3 accepted. One was a
you-
listing and one was a tour on buyers.
Bravo! I can't wait. I mean, honestly, I was walking out the door yesterday at our COO. I said, "So how are we doing?" And he rattled off like probably over the course of the past 2-3 days, like 8 or 10, probably 8 deals that we've put together.
Yep.
You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if I go in there in a short while and there are 10, but. Definitely, there's a last, but it is interesting in that yes, there's this last flurry, but I think we probably put 6 houses on the market for sale last week, and of those 6 houses, our engineer happens to be our transaction
There we go.
coordinator. How many deals did we put together? 4 yesterday, we put together 4, but not all of them were listings. So I would say that 2 or 3 of our listings actually sold, and probably 4 of them, 5 of them did not. So you round numbers, but
It's still spotty, but I think we're seeing more of a little bit of what we saw in the previous months. I mean, I wrote on a property on Laurelton, and there was, I think, 7 offers, and it went over 100,000 over asking. I mean, on the city side of Laurelton, over $300,000.
that did not happen on our property in Webster, which we listed for sale. It did not happen on our property in Edgerton. We had a great property in Pittsburgh that went mildly over asking. We had one Arbordale, $200,000, didn't sell it out. Like,
It's just, again,
just
very
crazy.
weird. Very weird.
But I think in part it does underscore the importance of lower interest rates.
True, yeah.
That's your segue.
Okay, well, they're down quite a bit from last week. Last week was at 6.31%. We're down to 6.17% right now.
Yeah.
Maybe this government shutdown thing, not so bad.
Are you endorsing more government shutdown?
If it makes the number go down and it makes our job to sell easier, selfishly, yes. Yes, I am. No, I mean, obviously it's terrible.
Why don't we dive into that in just a second?
Yeah.
The reasons why it is. You want to handle why it is interest rates are going down, or should I?
Go ahead, jump into it.
So it's a flight to safety. It's basically the bond traders, the bond vigilantes. They're basically saying, listen, there's a lot of uncertainty. We don't know what's going on with the U.S. economy. We don't know what's going on with the government shutdown. Flight to safety. We're going to pull our money out of equities. We're going to put it into bonds. When bond prices go up, yields go down. The 30-year mortgage basically follows whatever it is that's playing out in the 10-year Treasury market, and Treasuries, the yield on the Treasury is down. So that's why interest rates are down. That and actually the spread. And I don't have the actual numbers, but the spread, which is the amount that a bank will charge between the federal funds rate and 30-year mortgage, that has narrowed pretty nicely.
Which is
over the
something
course
we
of the past
expected to
year.
happen.
Yes, yeah. You predicted that, didn't you?
I did, 100%.
There you go.
Where do we see going from here? How much lower do we get?
There was an interesting article in the New York Post. I think I shared it with you guys yesterday. Interesting article in the New York Post 2 days ago. Article states basically that a number of economists are saying we're not really going to drop below 6% this year,
Okay.
Or anytime next year.
Does that seem odd to you, considering we're kind of almost there? 6.17.
Yeah.
It's not a far way to go. I mean, we literally just did it in the last week, 6.31 to 6.17.
Yeah, listen, we might drop a little bit below 6%, but I don't see us, I don't see some, mad onward charge to 5.5%. Okay. But hey, listen, I'll take 5.95. I'll take 5.9.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Beats 7 or 8.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't see that there's going to be a real. I don't think that's going to be happening. The article, however, I think. Even though it said that interest rates, the 30-year mortgage probably isn't going to drop below 6% for most of the next year and a half, there was what I thought a really optimistic and affirmative section about property values and how it is that they continue to fall in so many parts of the country.
Yeah,
but
Florida,
here in the Northeast, we continue to do well, and I think we may have last week, maybe not. Moody's, we talked. Did we talk about?
We
Moody's?
did, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
I think it was 4.3%, something around that for next year.
Yeah, projected, increase in the value of property.
23% in the 5-year projection, 40-some% in
43%.
the 10-year.
Well done there, mister. Yeah.
Numbers.
You're paying attention.
Some other numbers really quick, just to fire through these. 15-year dropped down as well, not quite as much. 5.83 last week to 5.75 right now. And then just our market update. Listings down just a little bit, 596 in Monroe County. Last week we're down to 586 right now, so dropping 10. 6 County region, 1074 last week, down to 1050. And now this is kind of interesting. We're seeing a drop in under contract and pending too. So this is really telling us the market is winding down.
Yep.
It was 1,117 last week in Monroe County, down to 1,109, and then 1,721 in the 6 County region, down to 1,624 this week. Let's turn to Evan, because Evan, I know real estate is a topic that you bring up on your show
just yesterday,
all the time. Yeah. But what it was overbidding, right?
Overbids. Yeah. Well, and I'm not even confident. I don't like that term overbid, because when something is for sale, the bids are the bids. It's really about over asking price,
sure.
Which, I don't need to tell anybody on this podcast. What do we? I'm going to say broadcast. That's not the world we're in here. No, you guys know that 25 years ago when I bought my first house, the big deal was like, do you go all the way to asking? Like,
right.
If you go all the way asking, you're going to get it, but did you overpay? And now it's like, if you don't go above asking, are you out of it right from the start? So,
although we're seeing a little bit of a shift. I mean, for the first time, I would say in the past several years, there are some agents that are taking that strategy of they're starting high and
pricing higher,
and they're going in with kind of the long game of, we might not sell this in 5 days, but if we're going to get this number, we're going to be stubborn about it. Obviously, the seller's got to be in the right mindset for that as well.
Yesterday on the show, I actually had a listener who is annoyed by the process that maybe you guys can elucidate a little bit here. He had to help.
Here we go. He's turning.
I'm turning it around.
It's fine.
Yep.
Already.
We knew it was coming.
I thought this is not my qualification to answer this, but this listener says, look, he just recently helped his 2 adult children buy houses, and he felt like the process was, he didn't use the word rigged, but he said both of the houses sold for 100 over asking, and he felt like the asking price was set intentionally low just to spark a bidding war.
Yes.
And that it was a tactic that he thought was out of bounds. That he thought, just price it higher and price it closer to what you think it's going to sell for, because his kids felt overwhelmed by it.
There's a corollary to that, So like, wah. And like, I'm sorry.
It's a sad trombone.
It's not as though we as agents are like, conspiring to to create or rig the system. But the problem is that buyers and their agents know that over the course of the past few years, listed for X, it's going to sell for $125,000 over X. So if you start at X, you're doing the wrong thing on behalf of your sellers, because you're not going to secure any deals, any offers, because everybody knows that it's going to sell 125 over that. So you can't start at what it's going to over the course of the past few years. And it's just tell them to pick up a copy of Adam Smith. I mean,
well, I mean, a couple of thoughts.
I say that with kindness and benevolence, of course.
I think he's a pretty smart guy, but I understand the point you're making. You can't control what people are going to want to do and bid.
Yeah.
And part of it is, if people want to bid, this is a free market. They can bid.
Right. Yes.
I get it.
I mean, people get very hung up on over asking as well.
Yeah.
And look, as realtors, we like to toot our own horns and say, we got, this much over. But at the end of the day, if it's pricing it low to go high, it's going where it's going to go, right?
Yeah, and on top of that, part of the reason it's going so high, as I've been listening to you guys describe for months and years now, is there's no inventory. Yeah. So I mean, like, the amount of buyers there are way swamps the number of available
And
properties.
that's
So
when I say,
it's
pick up
just economics.
exactly. Pick up a copy of Adam Smith, law of supply and demand. It's that simple. I mean, it really, and again, I'm not trying to be unkind toward this gentleman, but for him to feel that it's rigged in some way, I mean,
Tell him, imagine if he went through all this and did not get the houses, how frustrated he would feel.
I think that's also a fair point.
Yeah.
So-
But then again, I mean, he could also. This is probably somebody who's also saying that the U.S. stock market is rigged, or
Well, look, I'm not going to say any more about this listener. I will say that I'm going to turn it back on me now because that's part of the job is I've got to get interviewed. This is a subject that's so important to our audience.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've noticed over going up on, 12 years of hosting the show in January is something that was happening about a decade ago that I don't hear as much often anymore, which is maybe it's just selective on my part. But about a decade ago, there was this phenomenon in sort of American culture where it's like, if you were talking about something that didn't directly involve me, it's like, well, yeah, but that doesn't involve me. If you're talking about some sort of ethnic studies, or if you're talking about a festival that's not in my town, like, well, what about me? There was a lot of that. And that got a little frustrating because I don't just want to do national politics every day. We need to talk about what's happening locally in our communities. We're covering town supervisor races. Some of those are actually juicier than people realize. We are going to get esoteric at times, but the housing market, properties, what's going on with people's money, it affects everybody, whether you can afford to be in the market or not. And I understand there's a lot of people who can't afford it.
Yes.
But it still affects them. I mean, it affects everybody. So this is huge to us. It's why what you guys do is very valuable for me as a journalist, because I'm trying to understand it better myself.
Well, it's one of the staples of the American dream, right?
Absolutely, no question about it. Like, that's the definition of it, yeah.
Well, actually, there was an article that I read the other day about the American dream. I should forward that one to everybody. Great article. The cost of the American dream has risen substantially over the course of the past few years. I think it was Fortune magazine. In fact, Fortune magazine says the American dream, buying a house, buying a new car every 5 years, saving enough and sending your kids to college, having a pet. I'm trying to think of some of the others. Having a nice wedding.
Groceries?
Affording eggs.
Yeah, right.
All of that which we use to define the American dream now costs $5 million over the course of somebody's lifetime. $5 million. And when your average American is making no more than $2.8 million during the course of their entire lifetime of work, the American dream, the article goes on to say, is increasingly elusive for many.
Yeah, that's the average American that you're talking about.
Yes.
There's a huge cohort of people way below 2.8 who feel completely out of reach.
Well, and this is something that we've talked about over and over again, and it's something that I know is important to you, which is it's the dissatisfaction which is driving so much. The American dream that was promised to them at birth, the American dream that was drilled into their head by their parents, by their family, by their teachers as they were growing up, is no longer a possibility for so many Americans, and that's creating, I think, so much of the dissatisfaction.
I think you're right, and I think that it creates spasms in the American voters' response that actually creates a little bit of what we would call the horseshoe theory. So when that American dream gets more expensive, and I haven't seen the article you're talking about, but the numbers make sense to me, the idea that it's here and the average person is here and there's plenty of people down here, the anger that builds up there when you're told that as long as you work hard, you can have a great life, you can afford for your family, you can have housing. When you feel like that's not true, you get angry, and you might want to break the system. So you might want to elect. And this is not like Evan explains why. Evan explains why Donald Trump was like. This is not the only explanation for Donald Trump. For some people, it's break the system. Mm-hmm. For some people, it's we've tried everything. Let's try Zoran Mamdani. I mean, this happens in a lot of different directions, and it's a response to a system that feels like it has failed people. So. We try to cover this in granular ways, like right on the local level. I think it sometimes relates to what's going on nationally. But, guys, I remember, so I got to Rochester in 2003, and in 2004, I was working for 13 WHAM News, and I remember I was the reporter sent out to cover the first day that local gas stations had $2 a gallon gas.
Wow.
And I remember interviewing this guy at the gas pump, and elderly gentleman, and he just kept saying, I think it stinks. I think it's, and we really kind of made this it was a big deal. We didn't make it a big deal. Our audience was like, "Can you believe gas is $2 a
It
gallon?"
affects everybody. Yeah.
Now, granted, today, if you look at dollars compared to 2004, gas is probably less.
And gas
today.
has gone down significantly the past few months. Yeah.
But the reason I bring this up is at the time I was buying my first house and I bought it for $118,900. And it was a pretty average middle of the market price at the time. It felt like a lot to me, but it was doable. And I want to say, again, I'm not in your jobs. I want to say for 10, 15 years, it felt like you could get a house for $150 in a lot of places.
Yep.
Yeah.
And in the last decade, it's like $150 for a house, you're not getting anything. I mean,
It's tough, yeah.
you can get something, but not what you could get a decade ago. It feels like the curve, which always goes drip, drip, drip up, all of a sudden went on this rocket ship.
Yes.
So the price of meat, the price of chicken, the price of eggs temporarily, but eggs is not the only thing, despite what the president says. The price of all groceries, drip, drip, drip up, and all of a sudden now it's on this rocket ship, and it hasn't stopped. And that's where people are feeling really angry. It's like, I can't afford a house that I used to afford. People find out what the mortgage is on the current house that I have. They're furious.
Don't tell them. Don't tell them.
Well, that house was purchased in 2016. That was a different lifetime ago in terms of market dynamics.
Yep.
Totally different.
What neighborhood? What street?
Shalat.
Okay.
I can't tell you the street.
Don't worry.
It's a little too close to us. I live in Shalat. I will say this. It's a great neighborhood. It's got a beautiful little park. There are people from multi-generations who literally will drive down the street once a year, just checking to see if anything's for sale, and they'll stop and talk to people.
Yeah.
It's very much in demand, and I feel very fortunate to live there. But there's no way the price on that house from 2016 has no application to 2025. None. It's crazy.
Yeah, well, and this anger that you talk about, I mean, yes, there is frustration, but then when you are exposed to the Kardashians, when you look at Jeff Bezos dropping $500 million on his wedding this past summer in Venice, and people jumping into their private jet. I mean, like it just has gotten more and more difficult not to be angry or frustrated.
I don't disagree with that, and I think this has a possibility of being a tone-deaf comment, but this is where my brain goes. I think the anger has always been there at exorbitant wealth from people who don't have that wealth. I think part of and I think a lot of conservatives would say this, part of the agreement in the American contract was this. The American dream that you talk about, as long as it was reachable through hard work, as long as you could move out of your economic station, you could advance, you can move upward. As long as you could be upwardly mobile, you could tolerate the fact that there's exorbitant wealth. People could spend money that you could never dream of in a week, for lifetimes and lifetime, as long as you had the opportunity to get there somehow, or at least move up in stations. And then now that people are feeling like, I feel like I'm stuck, then you look at that and you go, what the hell's going on?
Well, and you bring up a great point, because the article does, I can't believe we're talking about this article that I just happened to skim through the other day. But the article goes on to say that 70% of Americans still feel as though they are going to be able to enjoy the American dream. And part of the reason that they aren't as angry as probably they could be. I mean, thank God for this. Is this hope that, yes, I'm still, I'm making $48,000 a year, but you know what? I'm going to have a private jet myself one day. So. Yeah,
that's interesting. Again, not having read the piece, that's a higher number than I would have thought. 70%?
Yeah, shocking. Yeah.
That's higher than I would have
shocking.
Well, I guess it would be, people are optimists still. I'm all for optimism.
Yeah,
we need more optimism in this world right now, but that's a higher number than I would have thought.
Evan, let's turn to you, because I want to know a little bit more your story. So you started in TV.
Yes.
And then made the shift to radio, obviously.
When I was losing my hair.
Was that what happened?
No, it was just coincidence.
What did you like better?
Oh, I'm thrilled to be out of TV, but TV is.
Was it Doug? It was Doug Emblett.
Yeah, it was mostly
just
Doug.
drove you. Yeah.
No, I worked with wonderful people, and I liked the work in a lot of ways. But there's a couple of things I would say about that. Number one, TV, in the same way that radio is an anachronism. What we are talking about at WXXI is, oh boy, am I going to get in trouble? There's some repositioning of branding and an idea of what we are, and I don't think I'm allowed to say it publicly, because literally I learned about this yesterday. But overall, I can say that we are not just linear platforms. We're not just radio. I mean, having worked in radio, it's tough, right? Oh, yeah. Really, really tough. Television, really tough. Very few people are doing the appointment viewing the way they used to. I mean, there's generational changes, but when you look at the data, what 30 and under is doing, they're doing nothing like we all did. It's incredibly different. So I don't think about it like I miss TV, because TV is kind of going away. It's there. It will be doing something, but it is already fundamentally different. In the same way that radio is. I don't think of my career in radio anymore. I think of it in, I'm hosting a show that's supposed to be the public square of the region, and it's on multiple platforms. We're on YouTube. We cut down for Instagram. We have different, we take an hour-long show and we repackage it in different sizes. We are on radio. We will be on different platforms soon. So it's not just one thing, but maybe that sounds like a dodge. So I will say, I don't miss TV because I don't love wearing foundation and bronzer all the time. That is a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Foundation and bronzer is the worst.
I've always thought that was a little bit harsh.
And especially when your hairline goes
back.
back, it's like, how high do I go with the bronzer?
Well, I don't turn to the president, Ellie. He seems to have some answers. So
that's not my model for makeup there. Although he's a very good makeup artist.
And the time constraints obviously are vastly different as well. So you have an hour on one topic, and you can really dive deep into it.
Yeah, that's such an important point, because I remember in 2000. The reason I remember the years is because my career moved in different directions. And in 2006, right before I became a morning news anchor, I was the 11 o'clock news reporter. And we had consultants flying from Texas, and they wanted to tell us that for the 11 o'clock newscast, we needed 30 news stories in a half-hour newscast that had 9 minutes of total news time. So 9 minutes, 30 stories. You start doing the math, and you're like, how? It's 20 seconds a story. And they made the point, or they were trying to make the point, that the average American didn't have an attention span anymore. And the good news is it's much more complicated than that. We definitely have a problem with attention span, and we have it because we can always just pick up our phone and find something to satisfy our whims. Kids are not reading books. I'm not trying to be that guy yelling at clouds, but kids are not reading books. There's really good data on this. They're not reading for pleasure. That's a problem. But long-form podcasts, Joe Rogan, among many, many others, Rogan is sort of the classic example, but those are long podcasts, and people are listening in big numbers if the content is really good. So that gives me some hope. And our job is to create that public square for an hour at a time on a subject that is as fair and representative of all the voices in that particular issue. And a lot of our audience will listen for the full hour, but some will pick it up and do like halfway. Some will listen when they're driving somewhere. Some will pick up the podcast later, and then some will see the cut down versions on Instagram or different platforms. We are trying to be that in a lot of different platforms because not everybody consumes the same way. But thank goodness there are people who do want that longer conversation, who don't just want a 20-second story, because that is not sufficient to feeling like an educated citizen on anything.
You had me on, a month and a half ago?
Yeah, something like that.
That was the most satisfying time that I ever spent.
Flattery is going to get you everywhere.
Thank you. Yes. I'm
glad to hear that. It was a good experience.
Because I was able to give you, listen, when you've got four of us in the studio and we're all, you've got to give everybody their moment.
As you found out.
So everybody's given their 30-second snippet, but for me to be able to dive in and nuance questions and engage in the back and forth with you, that was very, very satisfying.
Well, and so when I reached out to you about that, you had made some really interesting remarks about...
Go on.
Well, no, you did.
Flattery works both ways.
Exactly.
I wanted to talk to you about some really, I think, some substantive stuff that goes just beyond what market numbers look like. Mm-hmm. And at first, I think, if I can reveal, you were like, is it going to be just you and me? Should we add? But I was confident that the conversation we could have could go in depth in a way that honored your experience without asking you to be an expert on things you're not an expert on. But sometimes when we've got one guest, it's a different dynamic, and I really appreciate the chance to do that because now you're not flagging in your brain who hasn't been on in a while. Where do I need to turn?
Yes, yeah.
Which, again, I'm serving the audience first. Mm-hmm. So if you guys are both on, and I've got one dynamite guest and one absolute, I don't think I can swear on this podcast.
Sure you can. I swear. Do I swear? I swear occasionally.
A little bit.
I was not going to call you a dog shit guest. That was a joke.
I know.
No,
I was a great guest.
You were a great guest actually, and your family story is amazing. No, I'm making an example though. If there's two guests and one is just not very compelling and one's very compelling, I'm going to spend more time with the very compelling guest. But you're still being a human being, so you're affected by those things. So when there's one-on-one, people often really gravitate to that because you can go really deep. With
Yeah. And it's interesting. I'm not sure if we'll have to play this back later, but you started part of this conversation a few moments ago trying to describe who you were. You're on radio, but then there's the video. Toward the end of your description, if we play this back, I think I've got this right. You started referring to yourself as a podcaster.
Well, that's one of the things.
And you're just the conversation and the way that you started to describe yourself. Because as I've been thinking about you the past few days, knowing that you're coming on, I've gotten to, I no longer call you
like a radio
person. No, you're a podcaster.
Yeah, I mean, that's how most people, I don't know if it's most, that's how a lot of people are interacting with audio content these days.
Yeah,
it's through a podcast or a podcast app. That's where they find you. So we're trying to not just be in the past. We're trying to be in all camps.
Yeah, innovative, of course.
It's really hard.
I want to go back to something you said because it makes me feel very warm inside and also a little bit sad on the inside as well. And that's that there are people out there that are consuming, the entire show, right? Which proves there are people that want this.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But when you look at the broader just journalism in general, I mean, it's been gutted, for a lack of a better term, I guess, in terms of the locality, right? You think about a lot of the radio stations that are beaming in shows from LA or New York City, and it's just sucked the life out of it. And you talk about TV where there's been cuts. People are, they have their own cameras and they're doing all their own stuff, right? When in the past there was crews that would do this. That, as a former broadcaster, is what really saddens me because we're, tying our hands behind our back here to serve our communities, which is like the main thing we're supposed to be doing.
I don't disagree. And I think that there are certain choices that we have to make as a society, and we actually have to talk about them before this change hits us, because I think some people feel like change is pretty undemocratic. It's undemocratic when it's driven by technology. So a good example is my mother. She didn't want an iPhone. She did not want that. She has a landline. My son thinks that's the coolest thing in the world. He's like, oh my gosh, you could pick up a phone with like a cord.
It's retro.
It's in the wall. I mean, he loves that. But she didn't want to change. She felt like she had to, and now she's doing fine with it. She's in her 80s. But that was not a democratic change for her. She wouldn't have gone along with that unless she felt like she absolutely had to. And when I say change is undemocratic, think about AI. How many of us love all of what we're learning about AI? I'm reading a book called If Anyone Builds It, Everyone Dies by an AI researcher named Eliezer Yudkowsky. And he really believes that general and artificial intelligence will be the death of humanity. He believes that in his core. And he thinks that we're within a couple decades of that. Not to terrify you guys. But even if it's not, it's definitely going to displace a lot of jobs. There's a lot of bad things that are coming. There's some good things that will come with medicine and with other aspects of society. But there's a small group of people in tech who are driving this, the Sam Altmans of the world. We're not in that room, guys. Like, we're not part of that change. We don't have a say. That change is coming whether we want it or not, and it's coming at us. We don't have a say. There are certain things we do have a say on, and I'll give you a couple of examples. So WXXI owns the Little Theater. There was a recent story in which movie industry executives were surveyed, and more than 50% think we're within a couple decades of having no more movie theaters.
Mm-hmm. Wow, yeah. A couple decades?
They think within a couple decades, but
that's shocking. I'm thinking within 10 years. But go ahead.
Some chunks within that cohort thought within 5 years, and some within 10.
Yeah.
And I don't think we have to go there. Now, we used to have drive-in theaters, we used to have community theaters, and there's a reason that we didn't. That was the example of the undemocratic change. When we were able to watch movies at home, you're not going to need that community theater. Whether we want it or not, a lot of them are going to go away. But we can choose how we decide to interact with content when it comes to entertainment. If you like your movie theater experience and you like to be with people and not just on your own, you can still choose it, and the market will keep it alive. But you have to choose it. You have to go to the movies. You have to decide you're going to do that. If you go to the Little Theater. Whereas when it comes to journalism, it feels inevitable that we're going to lose almost every newsroom or most newsrooms. We have to find a way to have a conversation about what we value and not just say, well, I don't want to pay for that. I don't want to pay for content. I want everything free. I think we're training ourselves to think that if it's not free or if it's not close to free, it's not worth it. And that has been crippling for local journalism. And local journalism matters so much. Like, I'm not going to do the cliche stuff. I'm going to I'm going to hopefully go a little bit in a different direction than people would expect. This is how I'm an American exceptionalist. the idea, as Ken Burns is saying this month, Ken Burns has a new series coming out on PBS on the American Revolution in November. And he's right when he says the idea of this country was absolutely exceptional. 1776 happens, and as Ken Burns said, there is something new in the world. And everyone was like, wait a second. You're going to let the mob rule? You're going to let the average person have a say? No, it's the people with the money, the people with the title, the people with the scepters, we say. You can't trust the mob. Well, it turns out the population did want to say, and that new idea was really important. It doesn't mean it's been perfectly executed in this country for 250 years. It means the idea of this country is exceptional. And it is vital, I think, that we recognize what makes it different. Journalism is part of that. Being able to criticize your government is not allowed in a lot of places in the world still today. Being able to write stories that elected leaders don't like is not allowed in a lot of places still today. Having conversations on talk shows like mine doesn't happen in a lot of places. But we can't choose to lose that.
You are dancing around the edges. Our First Amendment rights are being challenged as we speak.
I mean, what happens if Disney doesn't walk back Kimmel?
I mean, what happens if Paramount doesn't pay the government doesn't pay the president $16 million? What happens if CNN does not pay a fine of $5 million because George Stephanopoulos said something that the president didn't like? Our First Amendment rights are being challenged because you've got a lot of governmental intervention saying, "Give me this amount of money because you said something that I didn't like." Bill Mayer, same thing. Oh, yeah. It just goes on and on and on. So same thing with law firms. I mean, I don't like the fact that you've got a Democratic lobbyist. So we are going to sanction you. We are going to close you down unless you. So
what alarms me, Mark, is that what you just described is not alarming to more people.
Okay.
I would have said in the last decade that everything you just described, like an example, the New York Times reporting yesterday, the president wants the Justice Department to pay him $230 million.
Exactly, yeah.
Just a direct payment for what he has decided was wrongful prosecution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he may get that money. And my guess is if he gets paid $230 million, there may be enough people who supported him who would be turning on him that you can fit in this room. I would have thought it's more. I would have thought creating your own meme coin and telling anybody around the world, if you just give us money for the Trump coin, we can have an audience at the White House if you give enough. Mm-hmm. And people are giving tens of millions of dollars from foreign governments for that. We're going to give you a Qatari jet.
Yep.
New Air Force One, a little gift, a little wink, wink. Hey, how about a new Trump Tower in our country? I would have thought that this level of corruption would have stopped more people in their tracks, even those who have voted for this president. What someone who's watching this is going to say is, oh, so you're not going to talk about Hunter Biden? You're not going to talk about, Burisma and all these other possible scandals? And what I would say is, to an extent, that's fair. There has been corruption in government.
Well,
there will always be some level of corruption.
Can I just interrupt?
Yeah.
Hunter Biden should be in jail for potentially in jail.
Yeah. Oh, I think Hunter Biden.
Yeah. So let's just set the record straight. It's not as though we're choosing a Democrat or.
But you can. Yeah. We talked about this on the program. If you're upset about the way the Trump administration is using power to either protect people they like or go after people they don't, you needed to speak out against the Biden pardons. The Biden pardons should have been something that you would protest about.
Yeah.
And it didn't get enough protesting. But do I think that's equivalent to what we're seeing? No.
Right.
I think we are at a new level of danger to the rights of the country. And a pretty good example of that. So yesterday we had a guest who was I was saying to people in the building, I'm like, do you know this is maybe the biggest guest we've ever had? It's a name that most people have never heard. And it was a name that until a month ago I'd never heard. It was maybe the biggest guest we've ever had. So if you follow what's happened in Russia, probably know Alexei Navalny, who was killed in prison.
Yeah, dear God, yeah.
Boris Nemtsov was assassinated in 2015. He was Alexei Navalny before Alexei Navalny was Alexei Navalny. And Vladimir Kara-Murza is a man who was a protege of Nemtsov, who became a close associate of Navalny. In 2015, Putin had Kara-Murza poisoned. His family was told 5% chance he lives. He survived. He had to learn to talk again. He had to learn to eat again, but he survives. 2 years later, he's poisoned again. He survives. Gets permanent status with his wife and young children in the United States, but he says, I'm a Russian. I want change in my government. Putin is a danger to the world. I'm going back. Speaks out against the war in Ukraine in 2022 and gets put in prison in Siberia for 25 years for treason. He thought he was going to die in prison. But a Wall Street Journal journalist named Evan Dershowitz was held in Russia, and the Biden administration wanted him out. And Putin said, okay, if you want the Wall Street Journal journalist, I want this hitman who's in jail in Germany for killing someone on the streets of Berlin. That's the guy I want. Well, the German chancellor says, I can't release him from a German prison. He killed one of our guys. So Russia says, well, we'll release 3 German nationals. But if we release 3 German nationals, now we want more Russians from American jails. And then America goes, we do that, then I want Vladimir Kara-Murza. And Vladimir Kara-Murza was the linchpin that got that deal done. He was part of the biggest prisoner swap in the history of this country with Russia, post-Cold War. And he was freed just over a year ago. Now he's living in the United States. It's not impossible that he'd be the next president of Russia if Putin falls. And he was on the program. And what he said about what's happening in this country is, he kind of cheekily said, I'm already in trouble with my home government in Russia. I don't know, I want to say too much about this. But he said...
Eerily similar.
He said, when freedom of speech and when basic rights are viewed as, something that the government could take away if you're not in their party, when loyalty tests happen, which has happened in the FBI, which has happened in Justice Department, who did you vote for in the last 5 elections?
Yep.
Those are questions.
When you do it with due process,
due process, when
yep.
we can blow up a boat that we suspect is drug runners but might be fishermen, and we don't care.
Yep.
He says, when those things happen, take it seriously. Don't wait for the escalation. Understand that we've seen where it goes. That's all he was willing to say. But when Vladimir Kara-Murza says that, I am listening.
Yeah. Wow. Where do we
Well, I mean,
where I think there might have been 1 or 2 things to unpack. What do you think?
a lot there. Do you want to jump first?
You go ahead, bud.
I wanted to talk about just public discourse, right?
Yeah.
Because that, again, there's been another deterioration just really in general. And obviously doing what you do every day, that's a big part of it. How do you balance that?
I get in trouble with some people, especially on the political left, who want me to be tougher. And my employer has given me a ton of room, because the show's not about what I think. But how I feel about Donald Trump has been clear from the start, because I feel like that's a different bar, and I've not been barred from saying so. That said, I have no animus towards people personally who voted for Donald Trump. They're in my family, they're in my neighborhood. My neighborhood has white families, black families, Puerto Rican families. There are 3 gay couples on the street. There's a Republican judge. There's people who work for the school district. There are people on all sides of the political aisle. And if the only way that the people on my little triangular street ever got to know each other was on X or Twitter or online, the neighborhood would hate each other. It would be awful. In person, the person who has a "Don't Tread on Me" flag, who used to have a more direct flag about Joe Biden, will plow your driveway and do your leaves. Doesn't matter how you voted. And the people who are on the political left will bring that person pies for Christmas. And it happens every year. And it is friendly, and it is cordial, and it is genuine. I mean, I love
humanity.
It is humanity. Now, I don't want to take it so far and say, so can't we all just hold hands and get along? There are consequences to votes and elections, and I'm worried about where we're going. I've got young kids, and I want them to grow up in a stable world, and I'm worried about that. But what happens, I think of what the late Molly Ivins used to say in Texas. She was a Texas left-wing columnist, but she was beloved on all sides because of how direct she could be with the political left. And she would always say, she would call the average voter, she called him Bubba. She said, don't blame Bubba. Blame the people who are manipulating Bubba. Blame the power brokers and keep your attention there. I think George Carlin would have said the same. George Carlin would have said, they want you fighting with each other, so your attention is not on the people with the power. And I don't think George Carlin would have been all that partisan today, although I think he would have been outraged by what's happening in the current administration. All of which is to say, which is a really good question about discourse. Too much of the discourse is online, and online sucks. Online's the worst place that you can try to have discourse.
There's an anonymity you can hide behind your keyboard without any
That's
difficulty.
just one reason, but people are absolute... where people are dicks to each other
I was
everywhere
gonna say, well,
online
well,
in the ways that they would never be in their neighborhood.
That's exactly what I was going to say. That's the anonymity. I mean, you say things to people online that you would never in a million years say to somebody face to face. Although I will say that increasingly with the passing of time, people are more willing to say things to those on the street that they...
That's a very scary point. Because it used to be, it was like the Louis C.K. rule. Louis C.K. used to say that the way he would talk to people when he was in his car, and what he means is talking to other drivers who can't hear him, is the worst version of himself.
Yep, because you're screaming at everyone. Everyone's an idiot. Yeah,
you're just the worst. You cut me off like he would say things like, "I hope your mother gets cancer." He's like, I don't know that person. Like all they did was they didn't see me and they accidentally cut me off and then they waved and now I want them to die. That's how we talk to people online. But to Mark's point, in the end of 2017, I talked to a local school superintendent who's now retired, worked in the suburbs. He said it was the hardest year he's ever worked in schools because of the way, mostly boys, but the way that students were now talking to each other, the way that they felt unburdened about any sense of decorum.
Well, and also
that scared him.
The way that students are talking to teachers. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is different. And I think that is the toxic fruit of a leadership that doesn't care about decorum anymore and will laugh if you are the victim of violence. I don't think we should be laughing at anybody who's the victim of violence. I don't care at all where you are politically. But you also can't tell me that what's happened in the last month is like some sort of a vacuum when the people who are clutching pearls over it were posting Halloween pictures of I'm going as the guy who assaulted Paul Pelosi and tried to kill Nancy Pelosi.
Right.
Think that's funny.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's not funny on any side. The discourse is really, really dark. But if we get back to talking in person more often, that's maybe the only way to save it. I mean, we live too much online. Online is warping our brains. It's
I'm not sure how to put the genie back in the bottle in that one, unfortunately.
I don't disagree, other than, you hear about these Luddite clubs and things like that, and they exist in some schools, and they exist in communities. But I think what is happening is people are waking up to the fact that this is really bad for us. The fact that most states now, almost all the states, there's a few left, but 3 years ago this was not true. States are banning cell phones bell to bell. Not like you can have it in your locker and you can check between class. It's like it is not allowed in the building. You can't check at lunch. You can't text somebody. You can't go shit post at lunch. You can't do any of that. None of that anymore, because they knew how it was absolutely screwing up kids all throughout the day. So that's a step back. Like we can step back a little bit.
Have you had anybody on your show, any teachers, any superintendents about?
Oh yes,
since September, because I've spoken, and they're all saying this is an experiment that is working beautifully.
I have talked to nobody who's like, yeah, I want phones back. Everybody's like, this is so much better.
Yes, exactly.
And a lot of kids will say that.
Yeah.
I talked to a 16-year-old student who said that she used to just scroll TikTok. She thinks on average 6 hours a day.
Wow.
6 hours a day on TikTok. And I said, how about reading books? And she said, I can't get through 5 minutes of reading because I want to check TikTok. So I said, well, what's school been like this year since September? Mm-hmm. And she said, I honestly thought it would be terrible, and now I'm fine with it. And she said, I kind of like it better because now I don't have to worry about that.
Well, unfortunately, when you've got, we're back to it, this is a secular conversation, but let's point our fingers once again. When you've got billionaires funding elections and presidents who are then beholden to those billionaires. I mean, even somebody like Mark Benioff the other day, left-leaning Democrat who is suddenly, and beloved by everybody in San Francisco, beloved by the left. A philanthropist. He suddenly needs to re-up his contract with ICE, and suddenly is now stating that Donald Trump should feel free to come into San Francisco with ICE and take over because there is so much violence in San Francisco. That is the power of the purse, and that is the power that these guys are wielding. So when you got a guy like Mark Benioff, who up until now has been left-leaning, and suddenly is now espousing
sending in the National Guard.
Things that are really...
Sure.
That's really awful. So if Mark Benioff, a hero to the left, Michael Dell and Michael Dell not so much, but that is the problem that we've got, because we're basically, these guys have purchased the government, and there's going to be no regulation on the part of the president. Congress is being purchased by these guys. The U.S. Senate is being purchased. And so, Section 230, you must be familiar with Section 230.
Sure, but I didn't know I was going to be quizzed.
Section 230 basically says that you can say whatever it is that you want. You're Mark Zuckerberg, and you can deny the Holocaust. You can just speak whatever truth you want. Somebody dies as a result of not taking a vaccine. Somebody dies because of whatever, and you're not being held responsible. If we can't over the course of the past 20 years create guardrails to protect ourselves and change Section 230, we're in a heap of trouble.
I am not a legal scholar on 230, and I don't want to speak out of school. I want to recognize where my expertise is or not. But you gave a lot there. I don't know much about the San Francisco story is not one I followed closely, admittedly. And some of the speech issue stuff, I think I would need to get more granular before I endorsed. I understand your concern. I understand your concern that there is that there are bad things happening without accountability. Mm-hmm. I rarely would endorse anything that limits any speech. I really do believe that the answer to bad speech is more speech. I also know that sounds naive to a lot of people, but I think we got to be careful with that, because when you start wielding that, you asked what happens if they don't put Kimmel back on the air. I don't want the next administration to be like, well, I don't like Rob Schneider's comedy, so he's off the air now.
Completely.
I think he is off the air.
But we do prevent people from yelling fire in a theater.
I don't know if that's the same thing. But
I definitely we're going to disagree on this, but I definitely think
fight.
Yeah, I definitely think it is the same
Mark,
thing.
send me text.
I think what you're saying is there are places where you can't say certain things, and there are reasons for those things.
Listen, you can deny the Holocaust. Great. If that's what you want to do, deny the Holocaust. But if you're telling somebody that they should pick up a gun and shoot their girlfriend in the head, if you're saying that you should inject yourself with bleach, that's what I'm saying. There are things that Mark Zuckerberg and others are not being held liable, despite the fact that the harm that is being done to children.
I think the law is already pretty capable of saying what you said was just a general idiotic thing versus you're telling somebody to commit a specific act of violence, and that act of violence happened. And I think the law is pretty good at discerning that.
Section 230 says the owners of the platforms are not going to be held liable. That's the law, and that's the law that so many people are saying we need to change, because it just allows for people. Romantic involvement.
230.
Not a fan.
No. Romantic involvement with AI, with chatbots.
Wow, we're going far afield. That also disturbs me.
Incredibly, but again, in large part protected by Section 230.
Okay, so my quick take on the friends and romantic relationships with chatbots. Since I didn't think we were going there. Ready? Just don't name your chat GPT. Don't anthropomorphize. Don't say he or she. Refer to it as it. It is technology. It is not a person. It does not care about you, and it can do a lot of harm to you. Sam Altman came out recently and was like, we are going to go forward with these porn bots. That's kind of like the euphemism for him. But at the same time, he was also saying, some of our products, we might need more testing in the way that they interact with people on personal levels.
He said in hushed tones as he's stuffing $1 billion bills into his back pocket.
It's a weird, different world.
It feels like the conditioning phase of the robot takeover. To be honest,
it kind of does, right? And we're conditioned in a lot of ways. Young people are more depressed. They're more isolated. They're having less sex. They're hanging out less. And now the robots are going to solve all those problems. That's not the solution I would like. But Sam Altman would like it, and that's another undemocratic change. Most people have never met him, don't know who he is. He's got a ton of power, and I'm not all that comfortable with it.
Yeah, in the past, 3 years? In the past 3 years, this guy went from an unknown. The one who's truly terrifying is Elon Musk. We could spend 6 hours on that alone. That's an interesting topic.
I have a show at noon. I don't even know what time it is. We're going to talk about 2:30 for the next hour. I didn't know you were this fired up about 2:30. You're really.
I think that a lot. I think a lot of the evil that is going on. The ability for people to lie without consequence. And again, I staunchly support the First Amendment. I wrote about it on Facebook the other day. I thought that this past Saturday was a beautiful. I mean, 7 million people coming out against tyranny. I think I think that's fantastic. But Section 230, it does need to be changed, and we do need to hold these people liable because there are no consequences right now, and the harm that is being done to our children is irreparable.
That's a whole other thing that I want to read about before I say any more about.
All right, so let's do it. Let's do a show on Section 230 in a few months. Seriously,
Yeah.
That would be great.
I'm with it.
Yeah.
Want to be respectful of your time, of course. You have a show. Because we could really go on.
I'm really enjoying this. I like being on the other end of this.
See?
I didn't think I would like it as much.
Right? You were scared. You're fine. Did great. What are you listening to? What are you watching? Want to end with that more?
Oh, actually, you know what? Even more specifically,
Yeah.
what podcast are you listening to? That's what I'm interested in
Oh,
hearing.
there we go.
So nothing that I'm consuming right now is interesting because I have a 3-month-old son, and I'm too old to have a newborn, but I do. And
Congratulations.
So, yeah, well, thank you. It was a long road medically, and everyone is doing awesome. So I have a 13-year-old and a 3-month-old, which is an incredible split, and everybody's doing.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Sure.
How old are you?
46.
That's good for you. Going to keep you young, seriously.
That's the one question I didn't want to get asked. I don't know if I would have showed up, Mark.
We can just edit that
Listen,
out.
I'm a Gen Xer, baby, born in 1979. No, this has been a great, great thing for us because it's a story that gets really personal. But medically, this didn't look like it was going to be possible. So he's an amazing kid, but I'm doing a lot of just childcare. And I'm not like when I get a free moment, I'm not like, oh, I want to go deep. I want to watch the rest of Yellowstone. It's like, let's watch Cheers again. So we're rewatching
Some comfort, yeah.
Rewatching Comfort Food, my favorite show of all time, Cheers.
There you go.
We're on season 6 of that.
Wow.
I can't recommend it enough. By the way, the social network everybody had was The Bar. I love that. I'm like, I love these period pieces.
Getting back in person.
I
right?
know,
Yeah,
it really is.
That's the solution.
And I love that. So I'm literally watching Cheers again. I'm trying to get through Shrinking. I like it.
Good show, yeah.
Everybody tells me I got to watch it. I'm late on that, but I'm watching the new season of Only Murders in the Building because I'm one of those people who's watching every season. Yeah, it's okay.
Meh.
I know. It's not like it's great. It's fine. I want to tell you something that's great, but I don't.
But you must.
I got one that we just finished that I really love. It's the BBC version of, not the BBC, the British version of Ghosts. The American version is awful. The original is so good.
Wait. The film Ghost?
Jennifer Love Hewitt, was she in the American version?
It's a show. No.
Oh, okay.
No. It was a CBS sitcom, but it was based on a British show. I just can't recommend it enough. It's really beautiful. It's really lovely. It's surprisingly poignant. It's really goofy. It's wonderful. So
Could I make a recommendation?
Yeah.
Do not watch the 8-part television series Monster that Corey recommended to me 2 weeks ago.
You turned on me. You were so into it.
Oh, I'm definitely into it. It is like so.
if I had more time, I'd ask you what the hell Monster is. But
The Ed Gein story.
okay.
He
seen
is the inspiration for the film Psycho, the film
wow.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and the
Silence of the Lambs.
and the film Silence of the
I
Lambs.
don't like stabbing. I don't want
Oh,
shows that have or movies that have
very gory.
stabbing. Stabbing is very antisocial.
Well, there's
I don't
really
need
not
it.
a lot of stabbing.
I don't
because
need any stabbing.
There's a lot of cutting.
The only
there's a
show
lot of
that's got
cutting.
stabbing that I could condone is The Great, which was a great show. That had a little stabbing, not a lot, a little bit. And I'm excited to see the new Springsteen movie.
Oh, that is
yeah,
all good.
yeah,
Yeah,
right, yeah,
So
definitely.
That and then podcasts. I mean, I listen to Ezra Klein because everybody has to in my job, and he's great at what he does.
Oh God, I love Ezra Klein.
I listen to the guys on the Bulwark. I just want to see what the Never Trump political right is saying. I listen to a few right-leaning podcasts. Jonah Goldberg is a conservative writer who I listen to a lot. I try to sample in a lot of different directions
you.
because I don't want to be in a silo.
Yeah,
There's a
Which
couple
more
of
people should do that, for sure.
yeah, myself included. Yeah,
I listen to Coach Ballgame because I'm a youth baseball coach and I want to listen to the smartest people who coach kids and do it better. And I listen to a Cleveland Browns podcast because I'm a self-flagellating Cleveland sports fan.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's Browns Film Breakdown. Jake, you pulled me in. You always have me believing that this is the year. It's the year for the Bills. That's pretty much it. I mean, I listen to some comedy podcasts when I want to turn my brain off. But I wish there was something more exciting.
No, that's good. But in your job, you've got to absorb a lot.
I do, and I literally, this is not just me saying this, I listen to WXXI's daily Roundup podcast because it's only 7 to 10 minutes long. It gives you our newscast, it gives you a chunk of connections, and it gives you a little bit of color in the community. So if I can't keep up with what's going on in the community as much as I want to, you literally can listen to that WXXI daily. It's 7 to 10 minutes long, and it's phenomenal.
No, that's great. That's awesome.
It's a great. The team that we have who's doing that are doing a great service for the community. So I want more people to know about that one.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, gotta have you back.
What we need to do, and I know you got to go, we got to do one really quick wrap up, not in terms of, but we do need to acknowledge what happened last night with the United Way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You want to do it?
My in-laws crushing it again.
Yeah. That's the best way to describe it.
I didn't get to go. We actually had another family function we had to go to.
Yeah.
But you were there in person.
So Lauren and Mike Dixon Schwabel being acknowledged and honored by the United Way, the Tocqueville Society, for their philanthropy. And as I wrote in a Facebook post this morning, I mean, these are people who you can be philanthropic in so many different ways. Most people, a lot of people will just write a check. Some people will sit on a board. Some people will be great ambassadors. They do it all. I mean, they donate so much personally. They chair God knows how many events every year. They're constantly acting as ambassadors and just bringing people into their orbit. And then it doesn't just stop there. I mean, so one night they're chairing a black tie function and, raising, $1 million for a particular organization. And then literally the next morning, Mike is in a pair of jeans and a T-shirt going into the basement of an inner city church, hauling out of there all sorts of crap so that there is a central location on Saturdays where the impoverished can go and have all their social service needs met. I mean, like, they...
Unbelievable. And they're watching my 1-year-old right now, actually.
And then on top of that, like, they've got a successful business. They've got, they have a minimum of 24 members of their family over to the house every Sunday for dinner, and then, others on top of it. A vibrant social life. I mean, they were like... there just aren't enough hours in the day, and they are two of my closest and dear. And I get a lot of shit done during the story, and then I just look and I'm like, how do they do it? It is just so. It's so nice to have friends that you are in awe of. And congratulations to Mike and Lauren, because they just really are insanely accomplished, and we're also grateful. So
thank you for that, Mark. Evan, thanks again. We'll
Thank you
definitely
for
have
having
you
me.
back.
Thanks, guys.
And thank you for listening and watching. We'll talk to you again next week.